And that is it for India's campaign in the Asia Cup hockey. But I mean, it was quite the interesting match. And India, as we know, going into this match, India needed a win in the final match against South Korea due to the permutations and combinations of the table being such in the Super Fours that India absolutely needed a win. They had to beat South Korea if they were to make it to the final, with Malaysia having already been confirmed of a spot thanks to their win earlier. The problem, however, was that the South Koreans, every single time India scored, the South Koreans had an answer. And perhaps that was at the end what was India's major undoing, because this was an absolute goal fest of a match, and not just a goal fest that was one sided. Both teams were consistently countering, and both teams were looking very, very dangerous on the break. They were looking dangerous when they went forward. India, to be fair, there will be moments that they rued in this match because, as yes, Prasanjit Chakraborty points out that Uttam Rai missed a sitter. That was one moment for sure. But they will also, no doubt, have absolutely regretted certain goals. One goal example being the second goal, which was scored by Ji Woo Xian, where India had the ball inside their penalty area, and rather than look to clear, the defender was carrying the ball. And when it got nicked off him, South Korea, well, they're a very good side. You can't present them with an opportunity that good. They are always, always, always going to very gleefully take it, and that is exactly what happened. But India, to their credit, did fight back even from there, because remember, they went into the first half with the match level, and then thereafter there was four more goals scored. India did in fact even take the lead on multiple occasions, because remember, the first goal India had taken 1-0, then it was 2-1 to South Korea. So it was a very back and forth encounter. Maninder scored, then Shishir Gowda scored. So it was a very end-to-end encounter, and I think a lot of people were actually hopeful at one point, myself included, that they might just be able to pull off what would have been a very, very good result. But one of the major problems was, of course, that too often it looked like they didn't defend well enough, and that was what ended up costing them. They gave the Koreans, who are a pretty decent side, chances to come back into the game, and as I said, a side that good are not going to turn down such chances, and perhaps that was in the end their major undoing. However, it is of course worth noting that this is, as we have pointed out consistently through this tournament, is that they're a very young side. This was essentially exposure for a lot of these players, and while you can debate the fact that should you use a tournament like this for exposure, the fact is that India didn't need this tournament to qualify for, of course, the World Cup. That's already a guarantee, but the Indian youngsters actually did a pretty good job, all things considered. But at the same time, they also showed why it was that the higher ups believed that they needed some more seasoning, because oftentimes there were quite a few silly mistakes which might have been avoided if you had a slightly more experienced team. But of course, that's not a criticism, that's just me pointing out the obvious. It is worth noting that, as I said, very young side. This was a side that many people didn't really fancy at one point, even make it out of the group stages, because of course they did start the tournament poorly. And remember, they needed to win by 15 goals against Indonesia to even make it to the Super Fours. That they could manage to do that shows that there is plenty of character within these players. But of course, there is a certain lack of experience, know-how, of canniness, of how to be able to see out a game rather than just actually just go for broke, consistently look to score goals. And to be fair, the Indian players did that with aplomb. They were very, very good going forward. They did not. They played fearlessly. They took the South Koreans on head on. So obviously, there's plenty of things which are there as far as learning curves, but you cannot take away from the tenacity shown by the Indians, from the spirit shown, and by most importantly the heart shown by these young boys, most of whom would, in fact, actually getting this kind of major exposure for arguably the first time. So it wasn't all bad as far as showings go. Yes, there will be some disappointment that they couldn't quite get the win, and in fact, that's despite leading the match multiple times. Remember, India needed this win, whereas for South Korea, even a draw would have done the trick, and that's exactly what happened. In fact, India can rue that there was, of course, had that video referral in the end gone their way, which, to be fair, was called right, and so there was no change made to the entire original call. So they could have argued that maybe, if there were a couple of decisions that went their way, or maybe if they'd taken one or two more chances, that this game might have had a slightly different end. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, very young side, and losing like this will actually be a very good lesson in more ways than one, because as many people will always tell you, you learn more from defeat than you learn from an actual victory. And doubtless the exposure at playing at this level will doubtless help these players gain more experience, gain more canniness, gain more know-how within the game on how to see out things. Because again, if you're looking at pure technical ability, a lot of these players have shown that in spades. But what they lack is, of course, experience, which is why they were playing this. They wanted the hockey setup wanted to be giving these youngsters exposure. So if you look at it in that sense, it was well done as far as the tournament went. Because even in the Super Fours, they actually acquised themselves. They actually did very well for themselves. So a draw against a team like South Korea, not the worst result. Of course, it will be heartbreaking that the Indians won't be in the final. But as I said, very young side, and they should take pride in the fact that they managed to get as far as they did and play some very good hockey into boot. And that'll be the end of it from this particular edition of this little live of ours. Again, thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoy what it is we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, all of that good stuff. And stay tuned with Sports Today, because we have a lot of stuff coming for you. We cover all sports, not just cricket, but we will be doing something on the IPL, our retrospective look back, very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. As always, I'm Shane Dias, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye-bye.